This isn't your grandma's Wuthering Heights.
Welcome to Groovy Movies. My name's Lily Austin.
And I'm James Brailsford. Hello.
Hello. And this week on the podcast, what else could we be talking about but James?
Wuthering Heights. It's been like my social media feed has been full of some reactions aplenty to that film, I will say.
I know. I mean, you think back to last year and that World of Real article about the shocked reactions to the test screening of Wuthering Heights. It's been, I think, ever since then, certainly you and I have been hotly anticipating it. Everyone has been waiting to see if it's as offensively ill-adapted as everyone feared and is excited for, I think.
Yeah, I certainly wasn't really bothered about the controversy leading up to it. I was just more excited it's Emerald Fennell's next film, So, controversy, kind of steamy scenes, whatever. I wasn't concerned about that. I was just excited to see the film, really, I think.
Yeah. I mean, for me as well, I was very intrigued for that. But before we dive into it, I feel like we have a public service announcement we have to make because last week's episode, I also love that I was like, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. We couldn't wait. Wuthering Heights was too thrilling. So we're back a week later. But one of our listeners flagged to us on Spotify that we incorrectly stated that Star Wars A New Hope came out in 1976. As James would say. Apologies, it's 1977. We didn't check it. I'm blaming James because I trust him. He's my Yoda, if you will, in Star Wars.
Wise you are not, Lily. My bad. I think in my head, I'm not great with numbers anyway, but in my head, somehow I thought the re-release of Star Wars was happening this year and it must be getting ready for next year. So I got a year wrong. Apologies, my bad.
We're movie people. We live in the future.
Exactly. So sorry about that. If Lily had been involved with the fact checking on that, it would have been accurate. So,
and I have to say, normally I am, but with this one, I was like, I can really chill this week. I'm just going to sit back, let James tell me everything, teach me everything. Anyway, look, that aside, I believe it's one of our best episodes. So if you haven't listened, guys, please do go back.
Yes, please do, yeah.
But anyway, let's get into Wuthering Heights.
Why did you leave me?
Why did you betray your own heart?
Let's just dive in first and foremost to plot summary of the movie, because it is somewhat different to the book, and talk about our film, what we think of it, and then we can get into how it kind of relates to the book and the kind of all the conversation of the noise around it. But I think first and foremost, should we just we'll attempt to spoiler free where possible. I don't know if you can. It's such an iconic story, but whatever. We'll try our best.
Right. I mean, here's my stab at it.
I can dive in with the plot summary if you want.
No, let me get going,
Okay,
and if I seem to be veering off course, help me out. So the gist of it, as far as I saw it the other day, was that it's set on the Yorkshire moors, and there's a house or an estate called Wuthering Heights. It's really decrepit, and it's really bleak, and Kathy lives there with her kind of overbearing, kind of drunkard father, and there's a housemaid Nellie and a couple of other housemaids. Kind of that's the vibe.
I'll just stop you there, because in the book there's a housemaid called Nellie, but in this she's the illegitimate daughter of a lord.
Oh yeah,
and so she's sort of a hired friend of Catherine to keep her company, essentially.
Yeah, and one day the father comes home and he claims that he found a child being beaten in the street and thought it was he couldn't see that happen, and he had to bring the child and look after it. So suddenly there's a new member of the household who Kathy decides to name after her dead brother,
Mm.
called Heathcliff, which I was like, again, see, here's the thing. I've not read the book. I only know, again, the basic bare bones, what I've picked up. So I was like, is that in the book? And there was a lot of me throughout this film, like, is that in the book? Anyway, so
That is
named after
it,
dead brother.
it wasn't Kathy, but her father named him Heathcliff after a dead, I think it was his dead son or a dead, it's definitely a family name of a relative who's died. I can't quite remember if it was a son or not, but that was one of the moments that were closer to the book, I would
Right.
say.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And so yeah. And so they begin this kind of he's like a wild boy, really. You know, he has to. You know, he can't hardly speak, all that kind of stuff. And so between
No,
Kathy
he
and
can't.
Heathcliff
See,
grows
I
this.
think you're mixing
What's
it up with the book, even as we go, or what we remember of the book. Because
well, I'll be honest with you. I've just watched the Andrew Arnold version, literally
okay.
just a little while ago. So maybe that's fresh in my head. Sorry, you take over, Lily. Help. You know, this is not my strong point. I don't know why I insisted on starting.
No, you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. It was just like he arrives and he's treated horribly by Kathy's father from the beginning. Kathy's father is a drunk and abusive, and he treats Heathcliff that way. But and he very much is clear to him that you're actually a servant, even though at first he says, "Oh, I've out of the kindness of my heart, I'm rescued this boy." But then he's put in the place of servant. But he's very much like, from what I remember, it was yesterday seeing this movie. Heathcliff, he can't write, but he talks. He's chatty. He's a
Oh, he
chatty
can't
Cathy.
read. That's it.
That's it. Yeah,
He
yeah,
can't
yeah.
read,
So whereas in the book, yeah, when he arrives, he doesn't speak English and says very little, and is treated kindly by Kathy's father. The whole dynamic is very different. But anyway, I'm already veering into the book. It's so hard to talk about one without the other. Anyway, so they grow up together, but from the beginning seem to be pretty much infatuated in love with each other. But the I guess narrative tension comes from the fact that her father is a drunk who's gambling away all of their money. So they basically, Kathy is compelled to find other options because they're falling into ruin. And then that's when Mr. Linton and his his ward Isabella, he's not his sister as in the book, but his ward, move into the big fancy house over that
Across the
way,
way.
over the ways of the moors, and Kathy engineers a way to encounter Linton and breaks her ankle, which that little part, the fact that she breaks her ankle, how it happens is not correct. It's not the same as the book, but the fact that she breaks her ankle and spends 5 or 6 weeks with them is true. And so she then becomes ingratiated with the Lintons and Isabella and ends up marrying Linton and abandoning Heathcliff, who is devastated. Also overhears a conversation where Kathy talks about how it would debase her, degrade her to marry him.
It would degrade her to marry Heathcliff, yeah.
Yeah, so his pride is hurt. He's very upset. He vanishes for years. She gets married to Linton, is very unhappy, misses Heathcliff, and then he arrives back, a gentleman, his long locks cut into a two-sword shorter look, and he's got a nice gold tooth where was one missing before.
Some grills.
And an affair ensues. I feel like that's as much as we're allowed to say, probably. Before we get into spoiler territory.
Yeah, so just to spell out as well, in the book, the film, and all the film adaptation, there is time spent with them as children and time spent with them as adults, which I didn't, going into this, I didn't fully appreciate that was the kind of the structure. I kind of thought it dealt with them mostly as adults, but that's definitely not the case.
Yeah, no, I mean, in the book, yeah, it's a long book, and you start with them as children, and there's a lot about that, but then there is quite a lot of them as adults, and then there's the next generation after Kathy. I don't think it's a spoiler to say.
I don't think it's a spoiler to say that, much to my surprise, there's a whole, like, you would call it like a fourth act if it was a feature film. There's like an extra, essentially a whole drama itself, set after the main characters are no longer, well, some of them are no longer alive, let's just say. It's the next generation. Like, What the hell? So
Yeah,
that's
I
not
mean
in.
that's the other half of the book basically. The book is split in two
Wow.
essentially.
And like and from just doing, I've watched the 2011 Andrea Arnold version. I haven't watched the 1939 version, I think it is. But all versions of the film, they exclude that bit because, quite frankly, the film would be what 4 hours long.
Actually, not all versions have. There are maybe four
Ah,
versions that include it. The 1992 version with Ray Fiennes, that was his
okay.
first film role, and that included the second half, which it was a bit of a strange choice because Juliette Binoche plays Kathy, and then she also plays the Kathy's daughter, also called Kathy,
Wow.
which is weird because then she's acting against the same Ray Fiennes throughout. Odd,
Oh,
odd
yeah, that
choice
must
to
be.
me. I'm not sure about that. I don't like when actors play their daughters, come back as a different character. I find that very jarring.
Yeah.
It was in a film I saw recently. I forget what. Oh yeah, The Secret Agent. That happens in that. I don't agree.
In the life and death of Colonel Blimp, there's a woman who marries the main character, and then throughout that main character's life, they keep encountering someone who looks, it's the same actress playing them, but it is a different person. Anyway, so
Well, you know
and that
what?
works. 'Cause
Okay, but
that's
that is actually. I wanted to mention Palin Pressburger when we talk about the film stylistically.
wow.
So that tees in. And actually, in fairness, even though to me it seems like a jarring choice, the thing about Wuthering Heights is a key theme is generational trauma. So it sort of makes sense that you would have an actress playing both Kathy and Kathy's daughter because the trauma of Kathy Senior does go down the line to her daughter. So
Oh
in a
yeah.
way, there's something in it artistically, but I don't know, find it jarring. Anyway, the point is,
Everybody needs a lot of therapy in this film.
absolutely. And yeah, the moors, walking on the moors is their therapy, and it is lacking. It is not enough. But the thing with the 92 version is that the studio got involved and basically were like, this film is way too long, it's unwieldy, you need to cut 30 minutes. So they cut lots of
Oof.
the second half, even though they included it, which made the pacing off, and it was kind of a
Right.
flop, unfortunately. Even though many think it is actually one of the stronger adaptations, if you're talking in terms of really trying to translate the novel to film. And actually, interestingly, Steven Spielberg watched that adaptation like a couple of years after, and remember, it basically gone straight to video, and he saw Ray Fiennes in it, and then from that cast him in Schindler's List.
Schindler's List.
Yeah, which he was Oscar nominated for. So it's an important movie in lots of ways, even if not the most successful.
And of course, Juliette Binoche and, as I said earlier, and Ray Fiennes, they teamed up together again in The English Patient. I had no idea they'd kind of had a screen roles opposite each other previously.
Yeah. And so anyway, we're we're getting off piste a little bit. We digress, but the point is that there have been attempts to use that second half.
Right.
But I listened to an interview of Emerald Fennell this morning, which I'll put in the show notes, and she talked about the fact that she doesn't really like that second half so much. And I agree with her. The thing about Wuthering Heights is it's like the most depressing, grimmest, most gothic of gothic stories. And for better, as problematic as their love is, that love and that kind of obsessive yearning, I think, is what makes the Kathy and Heathcliff part very, very successful. And by the time you get down to the second generation, who are all just as horrible characters, really, and like flawed as their parents, without that same kind of emotion driving the story, it can just get a bit like tough going. So to be honest with you, Emerald Fennell in this interview said that it's like one of the most successful pieces of art, but isn't the most successful novel. And I think that's true. Like, Wuthering Heights is incredible, and there's good reason why it has become so ingrained in our culture and remembered and is read and is on syllabuses at English schools and British schools. But that part of it, that second part is a bit flawed, I would say. So I think it makes sense that it shouldn't. I don't think it's like. I think the films that try and include it, or maybe the TV shows have a little more space, but I think it's maybe not the wisest thing. I think adapting something for adaption's sake, just to stay true to it, doesn't necessarily make for the most entertaining watch. So,
well, this is kind of to the point of this recent version, isn't it? Is like, I certainly was not even remotely bothered going into this film about the fact that it took liberties, that it changed the source material, that it was like, there were incongruous elements that might not match the book. That to me isn't a big problem, but as a baseline, in fact, I quite look forward to that. It's like, what are you doing with it? Where are you taking it? Because, but there is something to be said about being faithful to the source material. There's also something to be said about a fresh take on things,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that's the thing, is that Emerald Fennell has talked about, this is her remaking a movie based on the emotion she felt reading this book when she was a teenager.
Mm.
And I think that certainly comes through in it. But watching it,
That makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah,
I
right.
didn't
And
know
okay,
that.
we need to talk about it because, yeah, I sort of, to be honest, I struggled with it because on the one hand, I do think you should be able to, I think it makes much more sense to make your own adaptation, your own version, your Wuthering Heights, not an attempt to translate this novel completely faithfully, because I just don't think it was going to ever succeed that well. And I think the various version, like adaptations that we've had over the years, speak to that. Like very few of them have really worked at all. But at the same time, watching it, I did keep thinking about the book, and I couldn't help but feel a little bit sad that a lot of the complexity of the book was lost.
Oh,
But I don't think that is like, that I feel like that's just a natural thing, that as someone who's enjoyed the book, you're going to mourn those things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the film was wrong to dispense with them. But
yeah.
but tell me about it. Okay, so what were you messaged me after the film saying I'm processing, and then when I came out of the cinema, a friend of mine messaged and I said to her, I'm processing. Now that you're a few days after, I'm a day after, tell me what you thought of the film.
My initial thoughts were well, right, okay. Let's start from the beginning. So it starts off. I'm very excited. There's a bunch of things I did know about it, just from a nerdy aspect. Like, it was shot in VistaVision, the same format they shot one battle after another in, and parts of The Brutalist. So I was looking forward to that. Shot on film. So straight away the stylized visuals grab you, and I love a good stylized visual. I'm here for all that stuff. And then I think after just a few minutes in, it's like, okay, is this like the punk rock remix of Wuthering Heights? And then I was thinking, is this what cinema is nowadays? Does it need to be? Because the thing I started noticing, it was like, without having read the book, I just thought this is very on the nose. Everything's like, he's your pet, literally said out loud about Heathcliff's relationship to Catherine, and then there's a bit later on where one character says to the other, I'll be mean to you and evil to you, and I'm using you to do this, that, and the other, like literally saying it out loud. And like, that just started to grate with me very early on, actually. I was like, what you said about the subtlety and the nuance, it's like, that's not there. Like, you could, and of course, it's hyper gothic, it's hyper stylized. But
I don't think it's even gothic, though. I was a bit sad that I felt the goth had been dispensed with in favor of high camp. But anyway,
high
do carry
camp. Okay.
on.
I mean, camp goth. Then
You're
it's
right,
got the
you're right,
trappings
yeah.
of gothic in that it's dark and it's like everything's exaggerated. But yeah, it's camp gothic. I think would be the hybrid. And I think I'm still trying to work out if how much I like it or not. When I walked out of it, I really didn't like it, and maybe I'm still there. But I think the issue I had, the real thing that just worked against it, was this hyper stylization, this on the nose of everything, the high camp, and the kind of humor in this bleak story. Like, I couldn't buy the characters were real. I really couldn't. So it meant that then that what I could tell was meant to be this kind of like elemental love story set in the Yorkshire moors. That's like this kind of essentially this connection between two characters that you can't really put words to it. That just didn't work. And so then you're trying to get drawn into it, and it just all feels very melodramatic, and it's beautiful, and there's lots to admire. But the fundamental love story, this kind of twisted, dark, like just off-kilter thing, it just didn't work for me. What about yourself, Lily? I'm desperate to know what your thoughts on this.
Sort of similar. I think that, so in the movie, you arrive on the moors and it's clearly a set, very deliberately stylized to look like a set. There are these rocks, cliff that these sort of structures that are meant to, I
And
guess,
like
be
even
rocks
the
that are
wide
hanging
shots are like
in.
matte paintings, so you get that.
Yes.
Yeah, like you say, you get that really like everything's hyper exaggerated more. Yeah.
Yes. And so sort of you know what, it put me in it's put me in minds of lots of things. Like it's a melodrama that feels very old fashioned in a way.
Hmm.
It reminded me of Powell and Pressburger, these sort of melodramas which are stylized. I mean, this is much more extreme, I would probably say, than
Yeah,
Powell and
I mean,
Pressburger, but it's
way
in
more
that,
extreme. But
but it's in that lineage. I think there was something incredibly old fashioned in a way about this, these clear sets, but it's like pushed, it's like neo melodrama
yeah,
because
it has that technical, saturated look that Powell and Pressburger's films have. Very elegant compositions as well. Great. I mean, incredible production design and costumes. Loved that.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And Wuthering Heights is dark. It's like we've said, these dramatic sets. It's raining constantly. They're constantly being completely drenched. It should make me think of the book and the fact that people get colds and die at the drop of a hat. So the
Yeah.
idea that you'd be out in this pouring rain seems very unwise. And then in contrast, Linton's house is like bright colors, pinks and confectionery and everything. You're in the wilds of the moor at Wuthering Heights, but in Linton's place it's all fake and sterilized, and there are like there's a fish that's like being frozen in some kind of jelly, and there are animals that have been stuffed that are in cases, and there are these weird hand sculptures on the wall, and
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
there's even Kathy's room where her own skin has been copied onto a fabric, so we have her cheek with veins and her mole on the wall.
Apparently based on a scan of Margot Robbie's face.
Yeah,
apparently, I
absolutely
read, yeah.
correct to her skin. So there's this heavy symbolism that's like writ large, I think, about life versus being kind of made into property and like living, breathing things being kind of frozen. And she's sort of in that situation, living in this house, right? She's clearly
Yep.
not happy there. And so I thought, yeah, on the one hand, it was like enjoyable to watch, I think. But I think my struggle during it was like trying to let go of what I know of the book and the characters and just focusing on what is in front of me and like this is what we're saying with this, because it's so far removed from what the book is exploring, really. It's like just different themes altogether, really. So I think that was my own personal struggle with it. And yeah, I think that the choice to make it into like a melodrama, I just for me that was difficult because yeah, I enjoyed the campness, but for example, when she discovers her father dead, and we get a different angle on his body, and we see these piles of bottles around him.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's like it's got this sort of dark humor, like the thing with the skin on the wall. It's like grotesque, but it's also funny because it's so strange, and so it's like tonally, it's like a very unusual, and I think. The thing is, I'm just not used to that. That isn't like a common tonal choice, but I honestly think that is what makes it quite special and successful on its own terms, because it's doing something very different to anything I've seen recently. Like it sort of reminded me of The Love Witch in the kind of camp stylized sense of it. But the thing with The Love Witch is it's contained in this like very... It's such a clear homage to things like Donkey Skin and, these movies prior. And it has this like very conscious 70s vintage feel that it all is like very much homogenous and like it feels tidy. Whereas this, it's like pulling on so many different things that feels jarring, because I don't think any of us are used to watching stuff like this anymore. We're used to naturalistic dialogue. We're used to things being pared down. And this is like full throttle in your face. Literally tick list of kinks being ticked off. We have everything from cuckolding to sort of animal play, BDSM, everything you can think of course, a bit of necrophilia. And like that is, it's just, it's unusual. But I think that it makes it great. I think that is, on the whole, I've fallen down on the side of it's brilliant. It's just you have to be open to it not being like anything you've seen recently.
Yeah, I mean, which is very true. It is that, and certainly, look, it's way above the majority of like the mainstream schlock that we're getting as far as bigger budget stuff. Absolutely, but
Absolutely, yeah.
I just I wanted to like it. I'm an Emerald Fennell fan. We are Emerald Fennell fans on the show. The very first episode was Promising Young Woman, which is a modern masterpiece. So I think my problem was I wanted to love it, and I found myself liking it, but I didn't love it. And especially just the latter 20, 30 minutes, I didn't feel it. As in, you do need to feel that emotion, and I just felt like I'd been so kind of pushed outside or not invited in. I couldn't put my hand on it, but part of me was also thinking, is this what modern films need to be now? Do they need to be a bit on the nose? Do they need to be spelt out, like what's happening? Because which I know we talk about the Netflixization of Netflix style is like characters repeat their names, they state out loud what they're feeling, which was happening a lot in this film, and yeah, it works as part of the world. I get it, but I just felt on the outside rather than in this kind of weird world with them. And the shit that bothered me, which I didn't think would bother me, I'm so annoyed with myself for it bothering me. Because I did, I tried not to catch too much of the reviews or debate beforehand because I just kind of wanted to go in fresh. I haven't read the book, so I wasn't familiar with it, but I just know from growing up in Yorkshire that bleach blonde definitely wasn't a thing, and I know that it's stylized, but it really pulled me, especially the little girl version of Kathy with really blonde hair. I was like, I just can't stop thinking about the hair, and I shouldn't be thinking about the hair, and I hate myself for being bothered by it, because usually I'm like, course, change things up. It doesn't matter really. I know it doesn't matter really, but it bothered me, especially on the Yorkshire moors. I get that it's probably this iconic image that stands out. But what's your take on that, Lily? What did you have any feelings about that?
No, I know exactly what you mean. I think I think you're actually very astute to make that observation about the way that TV and film is now very, a bit more upfront on the nose. There's no build up to, like with Heated Rivalry, the fact that TV show starts with people immediately meeting and like having sex or
Oh,
falling
right.
or whatever.
I
There's
don't know.
no build up. It's right to the point.
Mhm.
So that strikes me as a really depressing
It's not
thing.
great.
But
Yeah.
I think, in fairness to Emerald Fennell, yeah, I think it's interesting us talking about this movie, because actually her work has bookended our podcast, because as you said, it was our very first movie we talked about was Promising Young Women. Saltburn was our biggest episode that we
Oh,
talked
yeah.
about Culture Calendar, and now here we are talking about Wuthering Heights. So I feel very attached to Emerald Fennell, and I really
Likewise,
admire her
yeah.
work. But I think actually the truth is, with her work from the start, even with Promising Young Women, I think her style is to be unsubtle. Like
Yeah,
Promising
yeah.
Young Woman is very on the nose. It is literally a very literal revenge fantasy brought to life. And there isn't a lot of subtlety there. It's all quite black and white. And I think that was also true to Saltburn. It was probably one of my reservations about it, was that it felt to me very Talented Mr. Ripley, but with less subtlety, more extreme characterization. So I think that is just sort of what she does. That's what she
Yeah.
likes.
Sure.
But yeah, I did feel that way too. Like for me, the blonde hair I sort of could ignore, but
Right.
but as someone who loves costume, and Jacqueline Durran, the costume designer, is amazing. And before then has done like Little Women and Pride and Prejudice. So she has done this period very well in the past. And it felt to me that she was being encouraged to take it so far that the costumes were a huge distraction from the story for me. Even though I love crazy costuming, it was just like so dominant. The clothes were so dominant. The style, like in this interview I listened to, Emerald Fennell talked about the sets like encroaching, like she wanted the world of Wuthering Heights to encroach on the characters, and it does too much, I think.
Yeah.
But then, if that's how it feels to watch it, but then I'm like, well, that is the choice that she's making with this film, and if you can kind of accept it on its own terms, maybe it works. But I do think you're right. I think the real problem is that all of the melodrama, all of the camp, all of the crass humor, all of this the sex even, like, makes it very hard for me to really, really care that much about the characters. Like, I didn't find that I was keen to see where it went. I was
Yeah,
like, I didn't feel completely emotionally invested in the story. Whereas you read Wuthering Heights, and as fucking awful as these characters are and how horrible they are to each other, you do want to know where it goes. You want to know what's happening, what will be the resolve for their toxic love. And that's the thing. It's like if we now talking more about it as an adaptation, the thing that I thought was interesting, right, was that it is not an adaptation of Wuthering Heights. Like, the very, very bare bones of the plot have been transported, but not even the bones, just things like names. Like,
yeah, because I've been I watched the Andrea Arnold version. I don't want to talk too much apart from I really loved it. Much more unreservedly, bloody loved it.
Will you forget me?
I could no more forget you than myself.
Heathcliff.
I haven't read the book, but it felt like this. I imagine what the spirit and the atmosphere of the book is elemental, very, very like the house they live in is genuinely grounded, decrepit, and bleak. And then when you go to the Fintons' house, oh my God, it's like heaven on earth. It's this. Anyway,
but they're in the same universe, aren't they? That's the thing. Is that it is so much nicer, but it still feels within keeping. Whereas
within reality.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, interestingly, Andrea Arnold has said that she doesn't like her Wuthering Heights.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they had she was under a lot of like time pressure to make it, and certain things had to be cut, and so she isn't happy with it, which I found amazing because I think it's a really, really beautiful film.
Yeah.
And I think that what is interesting about what she did with it is that the book is so dialogue heavy. It's so much storytelling, and then so much people talking to each other, and that's like the beauty of it. And I thought what was really smart about what Andrea Arnold did is that, like, she basically strips out the dialogue. There barely is any dialogue in it at all.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite smart because it's like, the focus is on capturing the feeling of it, but you're not trying to do the exact same thing because there's no way you could fit all that dialogue in. And the thing is, the dialogue is absurd. And what Emerald Fennell talked about was the fact that she wanted to lean into the campness, the melodrama, because Gothic dialogue is camp and melodramatic and quite funny. And it's true, there are lines in Wuthering Heights that are not meant to be funny, but they sound so silly to our ears. So it was like Andrea Arnold's solution was to lose the dialogue,
get rid of it,
and Emerald Fennell's was to lean into it and go even crazier.
And of course, that's what we talk about, adapting to different formats. So, taking the book to the film, well, yeah, let's take the atmosphere of it, not the literal words, which I think it did so successfully. I was really engaged with that story. I really got into the weirdness of it, the darkness, how Heathcliff, what a, odd character. Whereas it's all very simplified. Too simplified for me in the new version. You're like, and Kathy, she very quickly becomes an unlikable character in the new one, which is kind of fun. But whereas you get it in the Andrea Arnold version, it's the fact that of course you want to have a better life for yourself. Of course you're going to leave Heathcliff behind because come on, life and you get that how oppressive and overbearing it is in the 2011 version because it's so isolated, it's so bleak, existence is so hard. You're right. There's like people get ill, there's coughing. It's not easy. It's just not easy for everybody.
I did laugh. I did laugh in the Andrea Arnold one because classic film trope. Whenever someone starts coughing, they're not long for this world. And after we watched it, I was coughing, and Leo was like, "No, please, don't die."
Sorry. Let's get back on track. Well, why did a detour to Andrea Arnold? Sorry.
Well, because it does. I think. Well, it does its own thing because also the thing is, with Andrea Arnold's one, she made the choice to really explore characters who are dealing with being treated, abused, and just trauma. Basically, it's done in this like complex way that is like very compelling, and that is very much what the book is about. In this, it is like flattened into like a love story, but what I found interesting again in this interview, Emma Fennell referred to the fact that she talked about how Tarantino in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood changes history, and and in
Yeah.
Inglourious Bastards as well, Hitler is killed.
Of course, rewrites history.
Yeah, so
Spoilers.
yeah, sorry. Um, and she in a way is doing, she wanted to do the same thing. It was like this was wish fulfillment for her young self, reading
Right.
those books, reading the sexual tension that is never fulfilled in the book. Because this is,
Oh, I see.
what's
So she was making the version that her teenage self kind of wanted to see or
she was
imagined.
giving
She wanted
Kathy
to.
and Heathcliff the chance to have sex, to kiss, to have an affair, because they don't do that in the book. And you know what? It is interesting. What I really loved about the run up to this film coming out is hearing lots of different points of view about it from people who know the book so well, because I've heard it said that it's not a love story. And I can see that in a sense, you could argue it's not, because how Kathy and Heathcliff refer to loving each other, well, it's so toxic and also so dysfunctional, and also there is some embracing and kissing, but it's unclear exactly what goes down, because this was a book published in Victorian England, like it's not going to be talked about. So I can see that it's in that sense, maybe it's not a love story, but then on the other hand, they refer to how much they love each other, and the obsessive toxic love that they have for each other, even though it's so related to other traumas and other things. That is what is like the engine of the book and propels forward all the the vengeful stuff that follows. So I think that's definitely a debate. There's debate to be had about that. And so I think that it's very, I love that this film is falling down very solidly on one aspect, one interpretation, this reading of a book from, that many of us went through as teenagers, of unfulfilled sexual fantasy, basically, that they project onto this. And it really made me think about, what is this book and these film adaptations that have lent into the love story element of it? Because on the one hand, you could see it as like, this is like culture yet again, like romanticizing toxic dynamics, when this book isn't about that. This book is about generational trauma and what that then leads to. It's not about love. We shouldn't call that love. That's toxic. But then on the other hand, it's like, well, maybe that it is that, but also maybe it's the fact that this is young people reading these books, and this is like our own personal relationship to, and our own this is a human nature to romanticize things.
Yeah, I mean, part of me, like, very early on was like, okay, is this what these films need to be now to like reach a younger audience or a new audience? Does it need to be this kind of like it's it's not subtle, it's a heady brew, it's very sexualized. I don't know.
I don't know if it needs to be. I don't know if we need to say that it needs to be. It just is what Emerald Fennell has done with it, but what I did, I think what I was sort of thinking about or getting to before was the fact that, in a way, I think I could make a case the idea that this is the usage of IP in order to tell a different story.
Right. Okay.
That, like, if because watching it, I was thinking this is so far removed from the book that it needn't even be called Wuthering Heights, even with quotation marks.
Mhm.
You could have just made this story and given them other names. But then the truth is, would we have all gone to see it if it didn't have this association? Part of the fun of it is going in and seeing how it compares and contrasts with the book, and getting kind of, the rage bait of those reports, the fury online of fans of the book being like, this is outrageous, it's not like this, how dare you. Heathcliff was probably back and Kathy was like 17 in the book. This is all, what we talked about a few months ago. Well, actually, it's, I'm not saying that Emerald Fennell is that cynical, but I think she has a great instinct for the zeitgeist and getting people talking. And the truth is, like, using this IP to tell this completely different story that is about sex and love and eroticism, and other things related, but completely other things is kind of genius in a way.
I was, because we talked about the World of Real article about people kind of the test screening that they had in Dallas, and I was just had a read through it just to see had anything changed from what was reported in the test screenings to what we watched,
Yes.
and there is. They clearly did a re-edit. They clearly toned it down based on the test screenings because, I mean. I mean, I've got a line here. I'm just quoting from a Word of Real, right? It just says here, a nun even fondles the corpse's visible erection. There was no fondling of a corpse's visible erection in the film that we saw.
Yes, I went in being like, are we going to see the erotic hanging scene that we've been promised in the World of Real article? And you know what? I actually missed the erection. I was looking at a different part of the screen, and when the corpse was hanging there, and the camera moved to the little boys, and one went, "Ha, he's got a stiffy." I was like, "Oh no, I missed it. I hope we get to see it again."
But they
we
obviously
didn't go back to it, so it was.
Well, it was covered up as well, so he was got his trousers on. So obviously they reshot that.
Well, I think he. No, I don't think his penis was ever out.
Oh, I
James.
see. A visible erection. It was my apologies. Yes, I misinterpreted that. Yes, but there was no fondling of it. There was no fondling of it.
No, certainly no fondling, and also because you do see everyone seemingly turned on after the hanging, but it's quite brief.
Yeah.
It's a bit, and yeah. It's a random start. It definitely
It is.
It
I mean,
sets the tone.
but also I think it's like it's setting the scene, isn't it? It's like this isn't your grandma's Wuthering Heights. I mean, that scene isn't even the book, is it? It's an addition. So I think it's like it's setting out the stall that what you're about to watch. It's not what you're expecting.
Yeah.
What did you think about the idea that it's all sensual? It's all about being in this wild nature, and but the way it's represented in Emerald Fennell's version, it's like everything else. It's very campy gothic. It's like hands in eggs and fingers pushed into fish mouths, and I'm just like, I get that it got a visceral reaction from me, but I didn't particularly feel it was erotic. But the kneading the bread, maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit erotic.
No, look, I mean, I did find Jacob Elordi grabbing Margot Robbie's corset and lifting her up
Oh
pretty
yeah.
sexy,
Oh
I
yeah.
have to say. Like, I think it was. It's so hard to know because I'm like, I can't know what my younger self would have felt like
Ah.
watching this. But I think if I'd been 13 watching this, I would have found it pretty sexy.
Okay.
Maybe a bit, possibly too much.
Mm.
Like when we're getting into Isabella and her the animal. I'll keep it vague for the audience who haven't seen it yet. But the animal stuff.
Yeah.
Like, look, I'm not.
I was
no
like-
kink shaming.
That was
like-
one moment where I was like, that's definitely not in the book.
Yeah. In this interview, Emerald Fennell was like, like some of those most erotic things, the lines were in the book itself. It's a very, and I'm like, yeah, but no, like actually no, like that's just you took it so much further. But I mean, I think that it's jarring, but I think that she is a great filmmaker. I think
Yep.
she's a very, very talented filmmaker because it does still, I think, hang together pretty well. I mean, the acting is over the top for sure, but that's obviously very deliberate. And I think Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi, I thought were both really good. Leo was thought that Jacob Elordi was a bit too melodramatic. It was too much. But for me, I felt like given the tone of the whole thing, it worked pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought their performances fit in that world perfectly. So this is the thing. I agree with you. Emerald Fennell is a great filmmaker, one of my favorite contemporary, especially British filmmakers. Absolutely, but yeah, they delivered performances that fit in the world. Again, I hate myself for saying these things. They're irrelevant, really. But like, I kind of wish Jacob Elordi had grown a beard and grown his hair, because I was like, wig, beard, which happens in a lot of films. I'm not, and it happens in Batman Begins. I get it, right? So.
He might not be able to grow a beard.
Oh no, poor guy. Okay, work around it. He didn't.
Yeah, you're speaking from a place of privilege there, James.
So I'm so sorry. Yeah, yeah. But just these little things. But then the whole thing looks like it was filmed on a soundstage. So maybe that was deliberate. I don't know.
I honestly think it was.
Right,
Yeah, I
right,
think
right.
Emma Fennell talks about her wanting him looking like the Heathcliff on the cover of her 90s novel
Got ya.
version, of. So I think again, yeah, all quite deliberate. I mean, yeah, Margot Robbie's insane hair and
Well, what we'll
and
say
wardrobe.
on the now Cinema Vanguard WhatsApp community, formerly the IMAX Vanguard, the chatter has been on the particular strand that I follow, which is the Manchester-based one. A couple of people are saying appreciate it much more the second time around, got into it the second time around, just because they got that was they now knew the world and everything. They now knew the style, so they could actually sit back and just like get into it. So I definitely think it's worth seeing at the cinema if you are going to see it. And I am wondering, will a
Definitely.
second go around? I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I am too, because I think that's it. I think that the first time I was battling so much with what Wuthering Heights is to me.
Mm.
And I think that was what I was struggling with. So I think if I go in this time knowing what to expect, I think, appreciate this world building. I mean, before I say that, I just want to shout out the actors in it, because Alison Olivia as Isabella, she was also in Saltburn as Jacob Elordi's sister in that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I didn't even recognize
recognize
her.
her
I
at
only
all.
twigged afterwards. She's so good.
Yeah,
She's
she's
so
great.
great.
Oh, I absolutely didn't even recognize. Yeah.
And Hong Chow, again, it was like, took me a minute to accept this version of Nellie, because so different from the book, but she's really, really brilliant. And Martin Clunes, I mean,
Oh, Martin Clunes was great. He was
fantastic as Margaret, as Kathy's father, the drunk
he
father.
I didn't realize he was in it, and he was like a joy. I really liked him in it. I mean, again, when I was watching the Andrew Arnold version, I realized that the father figure, I'm assuming in the book as well, is actually much kinder, and it's this brother character who's not in this version, who's the horrible person who inherits Wuthering Heights, and you realize that makes it makes it much more complex. But yeah, Martin Clunes.
Yes, because he's kind to Heathcliff, but he's not kind to his own son, and he
Yeah.
isn't that kind to Kathy. So there's everyone in it is complex and many layered and has different relationships with other people, none of which we get in the
Yeah, but
in this
Martin Clunes, I
film.
thought was great. I really
But
enjoyed.
he
when
was,
he was on
he's
screen.
very entertaining. Whenever he was on screen, I was having a good time.
Yeah, same.
But also, I mean, in terms of the world building, we have to talk about Charlie XCX's music in the film. I mean, beautiful score, but that aside, this album that she made, was listening to it this morning. And
Really, you listened to a Charlie XCX album? I haven't.
yeah,
listened.
I know, I have, because it really, yeah. I mean, the music in it
Did you
is
prefer
fantastic.
better
I'm very
or
glad
worse
you've
than
made.
Brat for you?
Well, I still haven't really listened to that album. I'm sorry. I'm just not into that kind of genre too much. But maybe I will now. I mean, yeah, especially with her mockumentary coming
Oh,
out
yeah.
soon. I should probably do that for the sake of research for this show. But, the music is fantastic. I'm so glad I went to see it in Dolby, as you recommended.
Oh, you went to see
me,
it in Dolby. I
James.
thought you were going to see it at Picture House.
Oh, was that not Dolby? I saw it at the Picture House Central.
Picture House isn't Dolby, but it's good.
Oh.
It.
Oh,
Sorry,
for God's sake.
I thought. Oh God, I sometimes.
No.
So I need to
it's-
be much more rigid with you, but it's fine. You didn't. It's like Dolby would have been a little bit better, but you saw it at a good screen.
I saw it in a good screen. We were right in the middle.
Nice.
Not close, but not too close. It was great. And a packed cinema, which was so
Yeah.
lovely. It was really great.
What was the vibe
people
like?
laughing. I mean, it was a mix. Everyone was laughing, but also confused at various points. It was definitely, I think, mixed feelings in the audience, but people were present. They were
Okay.
they were certainly watching it. Their eyes were open. So yeah, I think in conclusion, I think if you think about the journey that Emerald Fennell's been on to get to this film. It's a pretty amazing trajectory from Promising Young Woman. I think after that film, we were like, we can't wait to see what she does next.
Mhm.
And it's sort of been this like build to more extreme and more.
Yeah.
She's gone more into her own fantasy world every time.
Yep.
And yeah, I think it's that can be quite confronting for a viewer because it's so different to what other people are doing, I think. But I'm glad she's doing it. Like, I like looking into her brain, even though it's quite subversive.
She's doing something interesting with her opportunities. She's certainly not she's not playing it safe.
No.
We're talking about it. There's definitely a lot that I did like about it. I personally felt on first viewing it didn't hang together. I know I'm saying I'm watching it a second time, but I'm also in the back of my head like, am I doing a Phantom Menace on myself?
See, guys, and that a reference to last week's episode.
Tune in to
again.
find out. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to see it again. And again, I look forward to seeing what she does next. I think
Yeah. Without
fingers
doubt.
crossed this continues to do well at the box office after all this hype.
This is the thing, isn't it? How is it doing? The box office it will be interesting to see how well it performs, because then that will probably have some sway on what she does next. If it doesn't particularly make its money back, will she have to take a smaller budget? Will she perhaps pivot to something a little bit more palatable to the mainstream, or will she stick to her guns regardless? I mean, I hope it's the latter.
I know that's the thing. I mean, so far I'm just looking it up. It's predicted to get, because we're recording this on Sunday.
So it's early
So
days.
far, the prediction is an 80 million worldwide box office.
80 or 18, sorry.
80.
Oh, 80. That sounds good. I don't know what the overall budget was, but I'm
Yeah,
gonna
let me look up the budget.
Can I just do a guess before
80,
you say? Oh,
80
you
mil.
told me I wanted to guess. I was going to guess.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you spoil all my fun, Lily.
I'm so sorry. Just like Emerald Fennell with Wuthering Heights.
I was going to say I thought it felt like about maximum 100 million budget. So 80 million, great. Okay, so if it drops 50%, it'll be 40 million. So it's got a decent chance of making a bit of money, maybe. As long as the reviews aren't so bad, it puts up 40, it drops like 60-70% next week.
I don't think people don't listen to reviews, let's be honest. No one is listening to this and then thinking, okay, I won't or I will go to see it. I think that won't put people off, but the general reviews aside, the general feeling around this film, and yeah, that's the question. But I mean, Saltburn was a runaway hit. I think it could be the same. I think people will be curious. And despite what people say about Gen Z, they actually do love seeing sex. As with the case of Heated Rivalry, clearly people like to watch. We want sex to be back on screen. So I think we'll see. We'll have to check in next month and assess how it's done. But
here's hoping.
I suspect it will do quite well.
Well, from what you just said, I had no idea of the numbers, but that's a really good start. To essentially make your budget back on opening weekend. Not many films are doing that these days, regardless of what budget level you're at. So it's a strong start. Sounds.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much for listening to another episode of Groovy Movies. We'll be back next month after the Oscars to assess the fallout and consider whether or not the Academy is still relevant.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, if you could leave us a like or a review, it all helps get our podcast out to a wider audience.
So we'll see you in a few weeks' time. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Groovy Movies is produced and edited by us, Lily Austin and James Brailsford. And James also produced the theme music.
Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Groovy Movies Pod, or email us groovymoviespod@gmail.com.
For more information about the films discussed, check out the show notes.